Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Kiyan.
And this is Dry Scout Rot Rut.
It's the best one yet.
that podcast where none of our clocks are set to the right time because this week we watched Captain Jack Harkness.
Written by Catherine Tregenna.
Directed by Ashley Way.
And aired on January 1st, 2007.
Heck yeah. You know, I realized this morning when I woke up that we're actually one episode away from finishing the first season of Torchwood.
Yeah, one episode away from Reese finally finding out about Torchwood.
I don't even. You're staking a lot on this. You're really betting a lot on this.
Well, I did stake a lot about it. I did stake a lot on it because I gave everyone permission to chuck me into an active volcano if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, that was a mistake. You should have given yourself a bigger leeway by saying by the end of the show instead of by the end of the first season.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not even going to dispute that. You're probably right. Considering Reese wasn't even a part of this episode.
Reese wasn't even in this episode, and it kind of seems like he's not going to be in the next episode at all either.
You know, maybe going out on a limb here, but maybe next episode is going to have like a post-credit sequence where, you know, it's there's no visual. It's just like a shot of a building or like a black screen or something, and it's just Reese going like, "What? You're part of Torchwood," and then it goes like "to be continued" or something.
That's like the post-credit sequence to Spider-Man Homecoming where Spider-Man's just dicking around in his bedroom and he takes his mask off and he's like, yeah, I look good in the Spider-Man suit. And Aunt May just opens the door and sees Peter Parker dressed as Spider-Man. And she goes, what the f-? And then it ends.
Nice.
Do the same thing with Reese and Gwen. Reese just opens the door and sees Gwen. I don't know.
Yeah, there's no like Torchwood costume to. Yeah.
I don't know. Just like. I don't know. Yeah, that's. I don't know. Sleeping with Owen. He opens the door and just sees her sleeping with Owen. He just goes, what the f? And it just ends. Except it wouldn't end on the F because this isn't a PG show. He could drop the full F-bomb and then it could end.
Yeah, okay, so here's how it would be done. She'd be sleeping with Owen, and it would be revealed in that moment that they'd both gotten matching Torchwood tattoos.
I thought you were going to say she was sleeping with Owen and it was going to pan out to reveal that it was just a Torchwood orgy involving Tosh, Ianto, and Jack as well. And then Owen opens the door.
Right, and they're doing this in Gwen's apartment. Yeah, amazing.
Look, given all the sins Gwen has committed this season, I wouldn't put it past her.
True enough.
Wouldn't put it past her.
Good point. Also, the Torchwood tattoo is not that far-fetched because, you know, since we're on the topic, let's just talk about it now. Torchwood has a logo in-universe.
Yeah. It's that, like, T made up of hexagons. I think it's hexagons.
What? No, it's like, there was one in this episode that was sort of just, it was the word Torchwood in, like, a serif font and just, like, in a rectangle with, like, yeah, just in a rectangle.
They've also got that more artsy logo, which is an oblique T made up of, like, hexagons. You can see it on the windows to Jack's office sometimes.
I never noticed that one.
That's the one that Big Finish used on their on the audio that brought Torchwood back.
I'm sure if I saw it, I would be like, oh, that one. But yeah.
So you kind of have to wonder why Torchwood has a logo. So it's supposed to be this shadowy organization. It'd be like if the Illuminati. Oh wait, actually, never mind. Actually, whoops. I rescind that whole. I rescind that whole argument. So anyway, again during the opening sequence. Well, actually, I don't have any like behind the scenes information. I don't know if you
No,
have
I
any before
don't.
we. This was nominated for the Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form, which I think is the same award that Blink won. Not this year though.
Yeah, I can't think of any what award it would have won other than that, or like what format, you know.
I mean, it won the Trust Your Doctor Seal of Approval, the
True
most
enough.
coveted award in Doctor Who history. We should just mail Stephen Moffat an actual Trust Your Doctor Seal of Approval and see what he does.
Yeah, I wonder if we could find his mailing address online.
Given the interconnectivity of the entire world now, you could find nearly anyone's mailing address. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, well,
So anyway, again, during the opening title sequence, we get some shots from previous episodes. Again, of Owen and Diane, which I'm just going to spoil this right now. We joked about that episode feeling like it took place over 3 days, but in this episode, Ianto confirms that the entire span of Owen's love affair with is it Diane or Diana?
yeah, Diane.
Diane took place over the course of 1 week.
Yeah,
And I thought that was just a joke that we'd been making because it felt like it did take place over like not even a week, but apparently that's confirmed canon. Owen!
yeah, yeah. And when you think about it, depending on how you like interpret the Torchwood timeline, this episode potentially takes place on the day on which it aired, January 1st, 2007.
Yeah. Yeah, because whatchamacallit, Out of
Out of
Time
Time.
or whatever it was, took place.
Yeah, it was like Christmas week.
Yeah, around Christmas. Oh boy. Oh boy. I have thoughts on that later on for the WTF Owen segment.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a long segment this week. Let's just put it that way.
Conversely, Seven Deadly Sins of Gwen is going to be relatively short this week.
Yeah.
But we open with Captain Jack and Tosh going to a music hall where apparently there have been reports of old-timey music. And I don't know why that alone warranted like a Torchwood call-out. Like that alone was what got Jack and Tosh to leave Torchwood HQ.
Yeah, slow week maybe. You know?
No more Weevils after last week.
Yeah. We hear Tosh talking to her grandfather on the phone. Although you don't know that that's what she's doing unless you understand Japanese, because she's speaking Japanese, and it's only afterwards does she reveal that she was talking to her grandfather about his 88th birthday and of how he was persecuted during World War II.
Did you understand Japanese?
No.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. I actually can understand some Japanese, like a sub-kindergarten level, just based on the ungodly amounts of anime that I've watched and, like, the fact that I studied linguistics. It's not that hard to, like, yeah, have some understanding, but no. I wouldn't say I understand the language whatsoever. Well, not whatsoever. I guess I am saying that I do understand it to some extent, but like, yeah, very, very rudimentarily, like the least amount of understanding you could possibly have.
I mean, the least amount of understanding you could have is no
That's
understanding.
not okay. That's not zero.
I like how you saw where that sentence was going before I got there. And
Yeah. So they go into the hall, and they're like, "All right, looks like there's nothing to investigate here. just a minor time rift that we probably don't have to worry about. Let's head out.
Well, so before they go in on the wall, there's a Vote Saxon poster, referencing that nice Mr. Saxon plotline.
Yeah, that's going down
And
in London while Cardiff just gets decimated by all the stuff that's been going on here.
well, so the Amazon X-Ray fun fact of the week, right off the bat, right off the top here, first 5 minutes of the episode, is that this is apparently actually the first in-universe appearance of the Vote Saxon poster, because this episode aired before any of Series 2 did. So this was kind of like a little preview setup kind of thing for that plot line.
Wasn't Vote Saxon Series 3? Because Series 2 was Torchwood itself.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, Series 3. No. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well... Oh, shoot, I can't remember now.
Because Vote Saxon was like the message...
Yes, okay, yeah, Series 3.
From Series 3.
Yeah, Series 3. Second season of Tenant. Series 3, though, because of the Eccleston season.
Which would have been airing later in 2007.
8. 7?
8? Well, okay, so Series 1 was 2005.
Yeah, okay,
Series 2 was
2007.
6, yeah. Unless they skipped a year, which I don't remember them skipping a year.
They skipped a year after Series 4. And they just did those specials that year.
Yeah.
All right, also there's graffiti that says Bad Wolf. Just to throw that out there.
Oh, didn't see that. Hey.
Remember, she is the Bad Wolf. She creates herself. Or something like that.
Yeah. No, that is what it was.
That is literally what it was.
But before they head out, they start to hear the music, and they go upstairs, and all of a sudden they're in 1941.
Yeah, good year, 1941.
Yeah, the good old days.
The good old days, back when you could just go to the dance hall and dance, and then the next day get shot down in your plane.
Yeah, good old days, back when you could go outside and hear air raid sirens and yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this.
I don't know, the good old days when you could be eating dinner and then just all of a sudden have to get into your bomb shelter without warning.
Yeah, it's weird to think about how devastated, British cities were, because I've never really seen or read any either, fictional stories or documentary, accounts of any of that destruction. I mean, I know that it was a thing, but I don't know. I just don't know the details of it, or I've never read anything really about it.
Yeah, we didn't really get at least in my history classes, I never really got a comprehensive overview of how much of London was destroyed. But from my later readings, I've heard it's a lot.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that that's not ever really touched on. Well, it's touched on, but I'm surprised that I haven't encountered much that touches on it. Because the U.S. got off scot-free in World War II compared to some other countries, and
because we were so far away from everything.
Yeah.
And just no one wanted to make the effort. No.
Well, Pearl Harbor and stuff like that. And similar other, things that happened. Like those Japanese subs off the coast of California. Which they mention not the subs off the coast of California, but they actually mention Pearl Harbor in this episode,
right.
Which is, I think, the reasoning they give as to why Tosh is only verbally abused and not just kicked out entirely of the party that they arrive at. Because they arrive at this party, which is sort of a last night in England party type thing, or Wales, I guess, because it just transports them in time, not space.
Yes, the kiss the boys goodbye
Yeah.
party.
And they're like, oh shoot, the rift just closed on us and we can't get back.
Looks like we're stuck here forever.
Guess this is our life. Guess this is our lives now. And that's a
Jack just fights in the war for a second time.
yeah. What if it was all like? What if it all ended with like a paradox? Like this is how Jack fought in the war, and this was the
Oh,
war he was
jeez.
referring to. All those flashbacks were just his falsified memories of like it actually being other wars, and it was World War II. And he goes on to found Torchwood. Toshiko also gains eternal youth during this entire period and gets her memories wiped and also joins Torchwood.
They're his memories from the future.
Am I
Oh,
hired
God.
yet, BBC? This is gold. Oh, sorry, Big Finish. BBC doesn't want anything to do with Torchwood anymore. What am I talking about? Am I hired yet, Big Finish?
Big Finish, call us. We've got ideas.
Anyway, they go to the little bar and they get some drinks, and one of the soldiers, he looks like he's going to berate Toshiko for what is obviously her appearance and the fact that she's Asian.
Yeah.
But then he just asks her to dance. He actually kind of does that and asks her to dance. Let's be real.
It's the insult approach.
Yeah. God. Jack tries to intervene and he gets into a little altercation with this guy, which the guy's superior officer puts a stop to, and they sort of become friends, and it's revealed that the superior officer's name is Captain Jack Harkness.
Bombshell opening title sequence.
Yeah, was that when the opening title sequence played?
I don't actually know, but I'm gonna pretend that yes.
It does seem like the most opportune time.
We then cut back to Owen, and in a hilarious fake out, the preview for this week from last week, the next time trailer, made it seem like that what Owen's about to say was about Tosh, but we actually find out in the episode that it's about Diane, because he goes, we could open the rift, maybe we could bring Diane back, and Ianto goes, no, Owen, no. Because apparently Diane flew into the rift when she flew away from Owen.
Right. And
she's probably dead.
yeah, well, and as we learned, there's like basically no chance that opening the rift is going Diane back.
There's basically no chance that opening the rift is going to do anything good. Yeah. As we find out next week, I really hope at least Jack or Gwen spends at least 10 minutes of next week berating Owen for opening the rift or trying to.
Yeah, that was my thought later on in this episode when Owen does what he does, which is just like this is like a lose-lose. Like there's literally nothing good that's going to come from opening the rift. Like literally nothing.
Yeah.
I have nothing to gain, Owen.
Except that he wants Diane, his one true love, back, who he knew for a week.
You know what should happen? Like, you know what? They should have given Owen the time of day, actually brought Diane back on that 1 in a million chance, and just had them like continue their love affair for like a week before getting tired of each other.
Bring her back and then have Owen realize that actually they don't work so well together. And then just have all these eldritch monsters pouring through the time rift, you know? No, it wasn't just Diane, but also all these monsters, and then just
right, the world is overrun. Diane is trapped in a hell she didn't ask for.
Owen caused all of it just to find out that they don't even get along that well.
Exactly.
Devastating. Just absolutely devastating.
Anyway, Jack explains to Toshiko that his name isn't actually Jack Harkness. He actually took that name from the real Jack Harkness, aka this guy, because this guy dies tomorrow.
Turns out Jack's a bit of a con man.
Yeah, which we knew from Doctor Who, and honestly, I don't remember whether Jack ever revealed that Jack Harkness wasn't his real name in Doctor Who.
I don't think so. This seemed like news to me.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But it's been so long since we watched Jack's Doctor Who episodes, not including Fugitive of the Jadoon, that I couldn't really remember.
Really, really hope that Fugitive of the Jadoon is actually teasing Jack coming back for a full episode, and it's not just going to be John Barrowman sneaking away from Cardiff for 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely... Given what they're setting up, I think it's definitely going to be at least like half of an episode that he, gets screen time for. I don't think he's going to come back as like a full companion or anything.
No, but I think he'll come back for an episode.
Yeah. Revolution of the Daleks, I would bet, is what he's coming back for.
Don't let us down, Chibi. Don't let us down.
I don't think Chibnall is going to let us down. Well,
he might.
Let me down. Because I've pretty much loved everything he's put out so far. I think he'll let a lot of other people down. A lot of people who continue to watch the show despite clearly not enjoying it anymore.
I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
So what happens next is they get their picture taken, I believe. This is actually a little bit before, but we kind of explained this in the wrong order. But they get their picture taken by this guy named Billis. And he's using a sort of a Polaroid camera, which Tosh later on mentions that she didn't know existed in the 40s. I didn't know existed in the 40s. And then I think what was going on here was that they actually didn't exist in the 40s.
I don't think they existed in the 40s, but you know what? We have the entire Some Human Knowledge at our fingertips, so let me just find out. Polaroid camera. Everybody talks about, I wish I was born in, I don't know, the 80s, or I wish I was born in the 60s, but I wouldn't trade the ability to look up literally anything whenever I want for basically anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade my, corporate curated source of knowledge that is the first page of Google for really anything,
I mean, I'll take that over not knowing anything, I guess. Okay, the first commercial instant camera was the Model 95 land camera and was unveiled in 1948.
I was kind of thinking it was going to come up as the first instant camera was released in 1853 or something like that, and it'd just be printed on glass or whatever they used to use, where it just instantly press the thing on glass, which sounds impossible. But hey, there are things in this universe, in this world that we live in, that seem radically and totally impossible and only doable in the realm of fiction, yet have actually existed. So hey.
What is it? Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I think that's the quote. Well, you could be the first. You could invent the instant glass plate camera.
Yeah, just have to waste probably years, if not decades of my life, doing that. That's all it would take.
You'd also have to study chemistry, probably, as well as
exactly.
physics.
That's part of it all. That's part of the decades that would take. All to do something radically useless.
Radically useless. Not just useless. Radically useless.
Would also have to spend years raising the funds I would need to quit everything and do that.
Just make a GoFundMe. Fund my insane camera project. Or make a Kickstarter and promise things to backers that you never deliver.
Yeah.
That's the big brain play. So anyway, yeah, they get the picture taken, and Ianto and Owen are trying to find out where Jack and Tosh are because, well, they've gone missing. And so they send Gwen to the music hall, and while that's going on, they kind of investigate historical archives, and they stumble upon the picture that Jack and Tosh are in. And, at first, the first time I saw this, I just thought Billis was just like weird old caretaker. But then at the end, when Ianto states that this is probably all just part of Billis's plan, I realized that, yeah, taking this photo is probably all part of Billis's plan because he wants Torchwood to know that Jack and Tosh are there.
He wants them to open the rift. And Owen plays right into his hands.
Yeah, Billis has got quite an advanced plan here, but he is kind of banking on the unpredictability of like Owen to make the whole thing work. Because if Owen wasn't there, Ianto probably would have been a whole lot more careful about getting Jack and Tosh back and wouldn't have just indiscriminately shoved pieces into the time rift manipulator and then just pulled the switch to see what happened,
Yeah, definitely.
Classic wildcard Owen.
Yeah.
Classic wildcard Owen.
Meanwhile, I feel they do a poor job of introducing this, but we learn that there's like an equation that they need to get Tosh and Jack back.
Yeah, this is some comic book anti-life equation BS. It's just kind of explained out of nowhere that Tosh has been working on this equation to control the time rift for the past 12 weeks. And not only that, but she was literally minutes away from completing it when they went to the music hall. Yeah. And she gathers the final piece of information to complete the equation at the music hall.
Yeah, I've read before that often, I've heard this in the context of like readers because I heard it in the context of written stories, but in this case, I guess it would be viewers. That viewers will easily accept one thing that seems kind of far-fetched. Will just very easily accept it, but throw in two things that seem very far-fetched into your story, and that's when people start to have a problem with it. And I don't know if I was trying to think of other stories where that could be applicable, but here it might be a little true because the fact that they're working on an equation, I guess I don't think that's what really made me go, wait a minute. I think it was more the fact that they were nearly the equation was nearly complete and they just needed a little more time or whatever.
They just needed time they didn't have.
five more seconds. Anyway, they come up with this plan to write down the equation on something that'll be preserved for 60 years.
Yeah, they also, well, first they need to get the equation off Tasha's laptop because the laptop is currently dying.
Yeah, and has the worst, battery almost dead message you can think of because it just obscures, the entire screen.
They need to make sure the audience knows that the battery is dying. Okay? The audience at home.
It did kind of add some tension because they were trying to get down the formula. And they were come on, but the screen was blinking with the battery message.
Get out of the way.
Obscuring the formula. Yeah.
Jeez. So she writes down the formula on a piece of paper. And she says that the paper won't last until the 21st century. Or the writing will. I think the paper will, but the pencil will fade. So after thinking for a little bit, they're like, oh, we can use the camera because photographs lost, right? And I was like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they do.
I mean, generally, but not always. She's banking a lot on the fact that, one, this building doesn't just, like, catch fire at some point.
Well, I mean, I guess they know it doesn't because it's the same thing. It's the
I
same
mean, it can
structure.
catch fire and not burn down.
Yeah, maybe they just use the photograph as like fuel for I don't know.
It's tinder.
Yeah, exactly. This is actually all taking place after Billis has already like very creepily confronted them because when Toshiko goes back into the room to take the photograph, he sees her again and he's like, "What are you doing in here?"
She's like, just wanted to see how your camera worked.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh." Meanwhile, some more has been going on between Jack and Jack,
Between Jack and Jack.
aka Jack Harkness, the real Jack Harkness, and Jack Harkness, the fake Jack Harkness, who has introduced himself as James Harper.
Yeah, I guess just stealing Owen's last name for a little bit.
Oh yeah, I forgot that Owen's last name was Harper.
Yeah. Wild card Owen again. How could you forget after he used his own real name for his jelly deal business?
Yeah, true. This whole thing kind of reminds. Never mind. I'm not going to go down the the road that would take us down.
Oh, all right. I mean, now I'm even more curious to know where that was gonna go, but sure. So, Jack and Jack are talking, and I think at this point, fake Jack, who is our Jack, has revealed that he can't do anything to save real Jack because he has to die tomorrow because otherwise him, Jack, couldn't, like, take his name. Mm-hmm. And also, like, there's no way he can stop the German ambush that he walks into, or flies into more accurately.
Yeah, and so the rest of this episode is kind of, well, the rest of this part of the episode is kind of dedicated to Jack not realizing that this is his last night alive, and our Jack trying to get him to live to the fullest without, revealing that he's going to die.
Right. I think we meet Nancy. Was it Nancy?
Yeah, it was Nancy, the one who like totally calls out Toshiko and is a total blank about it.
It's okay. You can say poo-poo face.
Jerk.
You can say poo-poo face on the podcast. It's okay.
Well, okay, so what Nancy does is she confronts Tosh and she's like, "You a spy? Huh? Let's see what's in that bag." She tries to take Toshiko's bag. But Jack Harkness, the real Jack Harkness, intervenes. And he's like, "Toshiko is a valuable part of our I don't know exactly what he says. But he says she's like an interpreter, a code breaker or something."
Yeah, he basically says that she helps break the Japanese codes.
Right.
And then everyone's
Which gets
like,
Nancy to step down.
I see. You're on our side. You're one of the good ones.
Yeah.
Basically what they say.
Exactly, yeah. Basically, yeah.
Nice. Nice. By which I mean not nice.
Yeah, I almost wish they went more into this whole angle, because they kind of just drop it after this. But, I don't know. I felt that was an interesting thing.
They've got things to do. They've got plot to elaborate on. They've got Owen to go back to.
Yeah.
To show us how he's lost his mind because he loved Diane just so much that he's willing to just rip a hole in the universe to try and save her.
Yeah. Because we haven't even mentioned Gwen in this episode yet, and she does play a minor role, but she is in the episode, of course. And she has gone after Jack and Tosh.
Right. So she actually meets Billis in the current day hall, which is a little bit of an indication. Well, it's not a little bit. It's a lot of an indication that Billis is kind of a bad guy.
Yeah.
Because he's apparently survived this entire time somehow.
Which, to be fair, his actor has as well. I look, when I was looking up the actors, he was in some 1960s stuff, meaning that he himself was probably alive in the 30s or 40s. So, yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Like, yeah, he's obviously like the villain here.
Yeah, I mean, he's been around for a while. And like...
with the same appearance.
Yeah, with the same appearance, but Ianto and Owen ask her if it was possible for him to be around during World War II. And she goes, nah, he's too young. And I'm like, Gwen, you might need to recalibrate your, like...
your eyes.
Your eyes.
So she goes into the hall. She starts investigating. And that's when they realize Billis is up to no good. So I think Owen decides to go in himself, despite Ianto's warnings, because Ianto wants Gwen to pull out because they're way in over their head, and Owen's like, no, we have to do this. Gwen, stay put. I'm coming in too.
Except then Owen gets there and just like, well, actually before Owen goes, he attempts to fire up the vortex machine. Or the rift machine, sorry. And it fails to Owen's relief, because Owen is basically begging... Ianto's basically begging Owen not to do this. And Owen's like, I'm going to do it. And then it's missing a piece. So Owen's like, well, I guess I'll go help Gwen.
Right.
I suppose.
Which, you gotta wonder how close the dance hall is to Torchwood HQ, given the fact that Owen just, like, runs back and forth.
Yeah, because... yeah, that's a good point, because Jack and Tosh took the
van.
The van.
So Owen's, like, unless he's just using his own car, I guess, but it kind of seemed like he was just running back and forth.
Just getting his laps in for the day,
Yeah, just getting his steps in. He just runs. He's been running like 20 miles. Each of those like cuts is him running like. Yeah.
It's him running a marathon back and forth.
26.2, baby, each time. Maybe it's a half. Maybe it's like a 13.1 each time.
Great. I mean, it would still imply that Owen is basically superhuman. Owen is the real enemy of the series, the real alien within.
Kind of. Like, if he didn't open the rift,
Yeah, I'm really curious to know what horrors we're going to see next week, because the Next Time trailer really, really played it up. Like, some terrible stuff's going down and time is colliding. That's a weird sentence to say.
Weirdly, like, Torchwood is sort of it's a pandemic show for us, because we started it during the pandemic, and we'll likely, even though it's 52 episodes, we'll likely finish it while the effects are still in full force or lingering.
Yeah, probably.
And it seems like the next episode is going to be all about aliens coming through the rift and spreading diseases. That's what the preview made me think.
Oh, yeah, because they're like, people coming back and forward in time is going to bring every disease ever to Cardiff.
Yeah, kind of like how Sapphire and Steel got trapped in every photograph. This episode seems like it's going to deal with every disease. Check out Inevitable, a sci-fi podcast, classic sci-fi podcast, where we discuss Sapphire and Steel.
Oh, jeez. Our shows have just become increasingly more and more self-referential, to the point where we just advertise our other podcasts, and that like forms a non-trivial amount of our content is advertising our other podcasts. We're like an Ouroboros now.
Gotta fund our podcast somehow. And the product placement of our other podcasts is what's doing that, creating a true Ouroboros-like loop where each podcast funds the other.
Except we're putting no money into this except for web hosting and podcast episode hosting.
Yeah.
Throw back to that time I accidentally erased Zenith off the internet.
Oh yeah, speaking of Zenith, check out, if you want to listen to us doing what we're doing here, but with Blake 7, check out Zenith.
So anyway,
a classic
Tosh and
God,
Jack.
what am I talking about?
Tosh and Jack are...
They're looking for a place to hide the photograph, and Toshiko realizes that part of the equation got cut off. So
Oh, no.
she hides that photograph in a certain location and decides that their best course of action is to write the rest of the equation on something else.
I kind of wonder why she didn't just write the rest of the equation on the back of the photograph. Keep it all in one place. Make it easy to piece together.
Well, it's okay because Gwen does find the hidden photograph.
Luckily.
But at that moment, air raid sirens start going off, and they all have to go into the little bunker basement area.
Most unfortunate.
At this point, we've already skipped this, but at this point, the real Jack has already been confronted by... I forget what her... Oh, I think this was Nancy, actually. I think the other woman was not named Nancy.
I think the one who is racist is Audrey. I think Nancy is the one that Jack was, I guess, sleeping with.
Yeah. So she's already confronted Jack. She was like, just wanted to say my last goodbyes. And he's like, yeah, all right.
He's pretty flippant about the whole thing. He's like, yeah, cool. Bye.
Yeah. Well, when you I mean, at this point in the episode, I'd already, like, guessed, but when you know, like, that he's gay, like, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, still doesn't excuse him treating her just like trash. You know?
It doesn't. True, like, yeah.
And that's why, like, fake Jack basically begs him to go kiss her goodbye, trying to convince him to do it without giving away the fact that he dies tomorrow.
Yeah. There was a lot. Speaking of the real Jack being gay, there was a lot of that was like very like there was a lot of stuff in this episode that like felt very period appropriate to me, because I don't know if this was true in the UK, but I'm sure they felt the effects. But like back in the 30s and 40s in the US, there was the production code for movies, which meant there was certain things you could and could not depict in movies, and being gay was one of the things that like you could very heavily not depict. So like when filmmakers wanted to make gay characters, they would include certain phrases and certain things in the episode that would heavily code the character as being gay, and a lot of those were in this story. Like when Nancy, comes to Jack to say goodbye, and he's like, not now, Nancy, like I'm having, a conversation with, he doesn't say this, but like it's something along the lines of like my male, like very close friend. He's like, okay. And it's heavily hinted in other ways as well before the big, quote unquote, big, moment.
Yeah, I'm just having a conversation with my pal.
Yeah.
My pal.
Winking to the camera. Anyway, they all go down to the like bunker area, and Toshiko decides to like. This was almost like it wasn't as gruesome as this, but it was almost like a Saw like moment where it's just like, I don't know.
She just slices her hand open. She's like, all right, I'm ready to write.
Yeah, and she does it with a can too. It reminded me of that. Okay, so there's this scene in Jackass 2, the movie version of Jackass, where Steve-O, they go fishing like for sharks, and Steve-O is live bait. So what he does is like, and this is a full minute uncensored of him just like putting a hook through his cheek. And it kind of reminded me of that, where she's just pressing into the palm of her hand with this sharp, rusty can.
Great. This was the vision I wanted this morning. Of Steve-O shoving a hook through his
Yeah, he does it. The way he does it is he puts the hook in his mouth and pushes outward. It's not like an inward. It's not like an out to
Yeah,
in.
that's what I kind of
Yeah,
guessed.
yeah. And at this point in the episode, Toshiko gets tetanus from the rusty can, and since there's no like medical abilities at the time, she just died. No, no.
I actually, the first time I was going through this scene, I looked away from the screen for a sec. I saw her pick up the can and she's like, ah, nice. And then I looked away from the screen for a second. Can't remember why. And I looked back and then she was just writing with something red. And I'm like, huh, I don't remember what was in that can. Let me go back and find out. And
she, she starts writing in tomato soup.
I thought it was paint for a second. I was like, oh, she's using paint. Nice.
How wrong you were.
You're right. I was super wrong. Jeez.
But,
Just, jeez.
but luckily, blood has the power to stay intact for 65 years.
Yeah, I was a little skeptical of that, but I was just like, you know what? Sure, episode. I'll go with it.
Meanwhile, Owen has discovered that in the interior of the grandfather clock in Billis's study, which he's just torn apart, by the way. He's just ripped Billis's study apart, or his office. But he opens the grandfather clock and he finds the missing piece of the rift machine that he needed before.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes it with him and he's like, sweet. So he runs back to Torchwood, leaving Gwen to fend for herself. And he's like, Ianto, I got it.
Yeah, and not only that, don't ignore the fact that he just lies to Gwen, and he's like, yeah, didn't find anything. Gonna go back to the office now. Bye, Gwen.
True.
So then Gwen is able to find the lost part of the equation because Tosh hides it outside underneath basically like a box of some sort. Actually, no, that was the previous part of the equation. That was the photograph was outside.
I forget where she hid the second part.
I think she just hid it in that storeroom because we do see then Gwen's reading the equation off to Ianto and he's typing it in, and then she finishes and Ianto's like, we need more, like 3 more numbers. And then Gwen's like, somebody scratched out the last 3 numbers. And I'm like, that wasn't an indication that Billis is like the main villain behind this whole thing. I don't know what is.
Yeah, well, we even just to confirm that, we get a little mini flashback to, I guess, some point between 1941 and 2007 of Billis scratching out the message. But
I mean, like, to Gwen, Owen, and Ianto, like, you would think somebody scratching out the last couple numbers would be the indication that somebody really wants them to bugger this up, and that maybe they should really think about what they're about to do, but they don't, so...
Yeah, well, love is a powerful emotion, so that's why Owen goes for it. The note also contains a more ominous message, which is, tell my family I love them. Written in blood.
Yeah, by Tosh.
Yeah.
I think.
It was just Billis screwing with their minds.
I mean, it might have been, like, Billis might have written that message to give them a sense of urgency.
Or to make them think that, like, his scratching out the last 3 numbers was just like maybe a smudge and Tosh was in a hurry and she just had to write that message of tell my family I love them instead of finishing the equation because she knew she was doomed anyway. Or something like that.
Yeah, longer. Write this much longer message than the 3 numbers you would need to write.
Exactly. Anyway, Owen opens the rift. He's really taunting Ianto during this. He really seems to be enjoying this.
yeah, and he's like, yeah, what about your girlfriend, mate? And Ianto's like, I knew her for years, literally years, and you knew Diane for a week, for a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Iantos also makes the good point of like,
Too wrong.
I didn't try to open the time rift to save my girlfriend. Yeah, I kept her in the basement, and yeah, she tried to cyber convert all of us. But did I open a time rift, unleashing unknown horrors to the world, basically destroying the sanctity of our world? No, and that's what you're gonna do, Owen. And I'm gonna stop you.
Also, two wrongs don't make a right.
Also true. Also, Ianto basically doesn't say this, but implies that he learned from his mistake and is going to stop Owen from making the same one. But, Owen's still just basically insulting Ianto, calling him an errand boy. And then Owen drops this nugget of information that he's second in command. And I was like, why would Jack make Owen second in command of everyone?
Personally, I didn't even think that was true. I think he was just in the heat of the moment. He was just like, F you, Ianto, I'm second in command. Like, let's do this.
I think it's true.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's true.
I'm not sure. I'm not fully convinced. But remember, Owen does have
we'll find out.
every effing right to do what he's about to do.
Does he?
That's what he says. Because he inserts the piece onto the machine. And he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to press the button. And Ianto pulls a gun on him. He's like, oh, no, you don't.
He's like, I will literally shoot you if you do that. And Owen's like, no, you won't. And, to Ianto's credit, he does it. He shoots him.
Shoots him what looks like right through the heart.
Yeah, but as it turns out, it's through his shoulder, but it definitely looked like it just was straight through the heart, like Owen would have just keeled over and died right there.
Yeah, I actually thought that Owen was going to die.
That would be pretty shocking, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I don't...
For Torchwood to just execute one of their own members like that.
I mean, it happened to Susie.
Well, Susie tried to kill them first. Which I guess you could argue that Owen is doing here.
But like given the nature of Torchwood so far, it wasn't outside of like it didn't seem like it was outside the realm of possibility to me that Owen would just die here at Ianto's hands. But that doesn't happen. But what does happen is like literally the worst situation for everyone because Owen gets shot, but that doesn't stop him from activating the machine because he just kind of like slyly smiles at Ianto and like uses his last ounce of strength to open the rift.
Yep. And then like the rift opens in 1941 and Tosh is like, Jack, we gotta go. So they go. But not before Jack makes out passionately with the other Jack.
Well, okay, so they're
in front of everyone.
Yeah, there's like this. They're doing what is implied to be like they're doing like this dance that everyone stops doing because they realize that like Jack is dancing with Jack, and they're like, wait a minute, what? Because
this is a dance meant for a man and a woman.
Because people in the 40s liked to pretend that homosexuality did not exist, despite like literally everyone knowing otherwise.
Didn't you know homosexuality was invented in 1981? Even the Romans knew about homosexuality, so come on. Was that I don't know. I think it was the Romans.
I mean, it was since the beginning of like time, like
I mean, yes.
That's why it always weirded me out that like people during uptight periods in history like not only didn't accept homosexuality, but like were so appalled by it to the extent that like it seemed like they didn't even acknowledge that it existed. And like when they witnessed it, We're just like shocked at its
Well,
existence.
part of that is probably the hypocrisy, but like I know for the Victorian era that they were very much in public prudish about sex, but apparently there's some evidence now that behind closed doors that those Victorians were some kinky ass uh,
Mofos.
monkey fighters, so to speak.
Yeah. So they start doing this dance, and the rift opens, and Jack is like, I have to go. And then they.
I thought time had frozen for a second for everyone except Jack and Tosh because everyone was standing so still.
But then you see that damn bassist in the background still playing his stand up bass.
He's like the band on the Titanic. He's like, well, world's ending, whatever, just gonna play my band. I'm gonna play my bass.
Jack and Jack kiss, and Jack runs into the light. The real Jack Harkness. No.
They just replace him with this guy.
Yeah. It'd be wild if they did that.
That'd be hilarious, you mean?
No, it's our Jack and Toshiko. They run into the light.
And then we just cut to them healing Tosh's hand, and they're like, wow, Tosh. And Owen's like, see, nothing bad happened. And everyone doesn't say anything, but they all kind of give him this look like, just wait.
Yeah, Owen is also like removing the bullet from his shoulder as he does this, and Ianto, he calls Ianto like a bad shot, and Ianto responds that he was aiming for the shoulder.
And then that's how it ends. That's literally how it ends.
Yeah. Real happy that Owen doesn't get to be smug for long. Real happy that the preview indicates that opening the rift actually is doing some horrible things.
It brings every disease ever to Cardiff. Why stop at one disease? Why stop at two diseases? Just go all of them.
Yeah.
You get a disease, and you get a disease, and you get a disease. Black Plague? Got it. Spanish flu? Got it. Malaria? Got it.
Cholera? Got it.
Oh, God. So, I propose to start with the 7 deadly sins of Gwen because I don't really have any this week.
Yeah, I didn't either. If she committed any sin this week, it slipped right under my nose. I didn't catch it. Good for her.
Slipped under my nose. The one episode she's been virtuous so far. Probably for the best, coming right off last week combat where she just drugged Reese.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, good on you, Gwen. Guess you're not the Antichrist this week.
But who is close to being the Antichrist is Owen.
Yeah.
Now, similarly for Gwen, I didn't have a wild card Owen moment this week because just what wasn't a wild card moment for Owen.
Yeah, just what wasn't just so out there and wild for Owen this week. I mean, he's basically going rogue, stealing parts for the machine, trying to bring back the woman he fell in love with for a week, which I'm not saying you can't fall in love with someone for a week, but what I am saying is that Owen is pretty heavily assuming, one, that Diane wants to come back and be with him, two, that she's even able to be saved after flying into the time vortex, and three, that they wouldn't just hate each other after like a month.
Yeah, true. And I think combat coming between out of time and this one really helps actually contextualize what Owen is doing here, because as we learned last week, Owen is at least somewhat suicidal. So I think from his perspective, from his selfish perspective, opening the rift is either going to bring Diane back or kill him. So he doesn't care. I think that's what's going on here.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too.
And I mean, I don't think we even need to describe how messed up that is. Because, yeah, he's literally just dooming everyone.
Oh, jeez. I wonder if he's more willing to do this because he basically broke up with Gwen as well. I don't know. I wonder if that kind of plays into it too.
It could, yeah. It could, definitely. I didn't really see that there was too big of a romantic connection between Owen and Gwen. More just, I don't know, physical relationship. But maybe.
We forgot to mention Owen, and this is the perfect time to do it, breaking into Jack's
Yeah.
safe of weird alien tech that he wants to keep hidden from the world.
Yeah.
And then just basically stealing the blueprints to the
Yeah.
Rift machine. And that's how he knew a piece was missing. Owen, 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 Owen.
But speaking of Jack, Jack was very distraught this week, and it was fitting that he was.
Yeah, Jack was basically emotionally wrecked this week. Just completely destroyed.
Yeah, not only by the stuff that goes down in 41, but I think next week he's going to reveal that Owen, having done what he did this week, has seriously made him distrust Owen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. There's going to be some strife within Torchwood next week that I'm really curious to see how it's going to play out. I'm really curious to see how this is going to affect the Torchwood team, especially since it seemed like the next time trailer, like, Gwen was very much like, we got to work together, we got to stick together on this, whereas, the way she delivers it makes it seem like they're on the verge
Mm-hmm.
of disintegrating as a team.
Maybe it's Reese who like finds out about Torchwood and pulls them all back together.
Uh, you're really banking on this Reese finding out about Torchwood
It's going to
thing.
happen, and if it doesn't, I'll be thrown into my my fiery hot grave. Um,
Gonna have to continue the podcast on my own, unfortunately.
Now, I didn't really know last week whether this was just a joke or not, but I actually did a Toshiko's Tech thing for this week, which my example of this week of her high tech prowess was her pressing into her palm with the sharp edge of the can and using her blood to write, because writing utensils and technology such as paper and such are tech. Primitive tech, but tech nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty smart too, because the blood will last a lot longer than the pencil graphite will, I suppose, which is kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I buy it. Tasha's tech of the week. You know, I'm realizing our segments are going to rapidly drop out of existence, presumably when these people leave the Torchwood team, as I feel like they probably will.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think they're gonna have the same cast for all 52 episodes for sure. I think next season will probably sort of Blake Seven series be it, where if I don't know whether characters are gonna die, but I think one or two of them at least will leave midway through series two.
Hmm. I mean, I think Jack and probably Gwen will last to the end of the show. I feel like they're the two probably constants. Jack for sure. Gwen, maybe not as sure, but pretty sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Gwen lasted the entire time, but the other ones, I would be surprised if they were in every episode. Not even Blake was in every episode of Blake 7. Actually, no one was except Villa.
Well, yeah. I mean, Blake was in the final episode, but also in the beginning episode. But he skipped quite a few
Yeah, I
episodes in
think
there.
if Paul Darrow was in the first episode of Blake 7, he would also have been in all of them. But he wasn't, so he wasn't.
Yeah, I think that was the case. I think the only episode Avon wasn't in was the first one. Okay. So, Britain's 10 actors for the week.
Yeah,
I looked up 3.
okay, well, I looked up 2, so why don't you start then, I guess?
All right.
'Cause then we can
So I've
switch
got
off,
Matt
yeah.
Rippey as the captain. I have him in Rogue One, The Crown, Doctors, The Dark Knight, and a movie that looked hilarious called Robo Shark.
Oh man, was that created in like the Sharknado success aftermath?
I think so. I think so.
I also had him as being in Dinotopia, which I've actually watched.
What?
It's Dinotopia is like this early 2000s TV series about like a lost like kingdom of dinosaurs or something like that. I don't really remember it too well, but I've actually watched a few episodes of it.
Wow.
And he was also in Hellboy too,
Wow.
The Golden Army.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so I had Murray Melvin as Billis, who has been acting since the 60s. He's been in The Avengers. He was in Kaleidoscope, which that name seems to ring a bell to me. I think I've heard it recently, but I don't know where.
Yeah, rings a bell to me too.
Yeah. He was in one of his major roles, looked like it was in Christopher Columbus, which I'm guessing is a retelling of Christopher Columbus. He was in Super Grand, that show about like a grandmother with superpowers that came out in the 70s, which I actually know for some reason. He was in William Tell. He was in something called Star Hunter, and still is in something called Star Hunter because Star Hunter is still getting series made about it. I don't know what Star Hunter is, but like the latest series of it came out in 2018. So, yeah.
Good to know.
And I mean, good on, Murray Melvin for still acting because he's probably like in his 80s.
I've also got him in. Yeah, I've also got him in a couple movies recently, like The Lost City of Z and The Phantom of the Opera. I've actually seen The Lost City of Z. Haven't seen Phantom of the Opera. He was also in Barry Lyndon, which weirdly enough, the number 2 from this week on The Prisoner was also in Barry Lyndon.
Wow.
And then the final one I have is Ellen Reese as Nancy. She was in World War Z and then Broadchurch and Casualty. She doesn't have a lot of acting credits to her name.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, that pretty much wraps up everything I have to say.
Pretty much. I did like, and I noticed this, how the Rift machine, when it turns on, kind of goes up and down, almost like the console in the TARDIS. I thought that was a nice little touch there by the set design.
Yeah.
Just kind of a little
Definitely.
nod to the Doctor Who roots of Torchwood. Along with all the other nods like Vote Saxon and Bad Wolf. And Jack's entire existence. Jack actually references the parting of the ways in this because he tells Tosh about how he died and someone brought him back to life. He doesn't say that he's immortal now, but he does say that it seems like someone's keeping him around for something after that moment.
Mm-hmm. And again, if you watch Torchwood without having watched Doctor Who, this really heavily telegraphs that this is all leading up to something in Torchwood, and it's not.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we had any emails or anything this week, but we did have a Facebook comment.
No emails this week.
Yeah, so we have another comment on Facebook from Alex. This is on Out of Time. So Alex says, I actually liked this episode, which that's in reference to us saying we didn't particularly care for parts of the episode, or just the episode in general, I think. So he goes on, I'm not throwing shade. I understand and respect why you don't care about characters unless they are main characters, but I cared for these characters from the off and found it interesting. Found it an interesting character study. Yeah, in hindsight, and now reading your comment, Alex, I do think we were a little harsh. I still do just wish there was an establishing scene of them like leaving on the flight or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the gist of why I didn't care about them is not necessarily just because they were story specific characters, but because they were story specific characters that didn't really seem like they had a backstory. You know, they just kind of all got on this plane and then they appeared there. So I agree with you, Kiyan, that if we had some sort of establishing shot that put them together, or I don't know, because they in the episode they kind of they play up this whole like, oh, we can never go back to our old lives again thing. But for me, that fell flat because I didn't know what their old lives were like at all.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, thanks for the comment, Alex. Nice to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, no emails from me, so I'm all out of things to say. But if anybody would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorative.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Captain Jack Harkness, both the character and the episode. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher, all at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be watching End of Days, but until then, the end.